Hey everybody, this is Kris Guthridge, podcaster and broadcaster at 4playernetwork.com, and I humbly submit to you my top 10 games of 2014. South Park and the Stick of Truth is a rarity among South Park games, in that it's actually good. A big part of the reason why is because series creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone were both very heavily involved in the production of this game, which gives Stick of Truth a sense of continuity with the television show. It feels like the same style, the same sort of humor and story. But the nice thing about working in a video game is that they're not beholden to Comedy Central's standards and practices department, giving them room to pull gags that would make even the most vulgar-minded blush. The gameplay is comfortable, but borders on the light side, and admittedly by the end of the game, all pretense of challenge kind of dissolve away, but it's still fun to play. The game's length might also irk some hardcore fans of turn-based JRPGs, but I think it was appropriate given the story content, which was hilarious and well played out, and they didn't let it overstay its welcome. Speaking as both a fan of South Park and RPGs, I had a lot of high hopes for this one, and I have to say, it did deliver. It wasn't the best game I played this year, but it was still pretty damn good. So I've always had a thing for collectible card games. I used to be a huge fan of Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And especially Magic the Gathering. I don't really know why. Maybe it's because they're super customizable, tactical experiences. Maybe it's all the pretty art. Can't really say for sure. But I do know a fun card game when I play one. And guys, I gotta tell you, Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft is a fun card game. Now, it's basically just a streamlined version of Magic the Gathering. They kind of remove the mana cards, deleting that resource gathering sort of component of Magic the Gathering, which gets you into the action a lot quicker, makes games a lot quicker, usually around 10 to 15 minutes long. The gameplay is super addictive. It's a very easy game to learn, a very tough game to master. And the more Blizzard expands this library of cards, the deeper that the tactics and strategies are going to get. There are a few games I played this year that were as addictive and compulsive and rewarding as Hearthstone. I dumped hours into this game in 2014, and I did it all without paying a dime, so I can't complain with that. Some games test you mentally with deep strategy and tactics. Others test you emotionally with interminable loss and regret. Stoic Studios' The Banner Saga does both, and it does them very well. If you're not fighting for your life by a sword and axe, you're making tough choices with far-reaching implications as you lead your band of people across a blighted land. The tactics system is streamlined yet surprisingly robust, and the game's art and music are fantastic, standing more than well enough on their own. It may not last quite as long as some other beloved games in this genre, but I definitely think that the Banner Saga is every bit worthy of the Tactics RPG legacy. And that's why I've made it my number 8 choice. 2014 was kind of a rough year for Ubisoft. They had a few high-profile game launches that went less than well. So I think Far Cry 4 stands as kind of their saving grace of this year. On its own, there's not really much to say about Far Cry 4. If you played 3, you've seen most of the content here. Far Cry 4 serves more as an incremental improvement to 3 than an actual full-blown sequel. But you know, the changes they do make here do kind of elevate the experience a little bit. I mean, there aren't many games out there that'll give me the thrill of hunting rhinoceros from an auto-gyro using C4 and hand grenades. And I don't really see the need for more reason than that to give it the number 7 spot on my list. Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor was a pretty big surprise for me this year. I greatly underestimated how much I was going to enjoy this game before it came out. I mean, I was pretty sure it was just going to be some Lord of the Rings themed Assassin's Creed clone. And to be fair, it pretty much is exactly that. But hey, I really like Assassin's Creed when it's done well. And Lord of the Rings is pretty cool too. But the reason I'm putting it on this list is because of the oft-touted Nemesis system. You know, the one where regular enemies can become these fully named boss characters with their own strengths and weaknesses and personalities. Sure, it was a little quirky at times, and orcs who you had decapitated 2, 3, 4, 5 times just kept coming back for more. But when it worked, it was amazing. And I think this is a great idea. I mean, I would love to see other developers try their own take of the Nemesis system and maybe even one-up it. I mean, sure, it didn't always work exactly like it was supposed to, but it was a really inspired design choice, and that's why I'm putting it as number 6 on my list. Dragon Age was a bit of a polarizing issue this year. Speaking personally, I can honestly say that I greatly enjoyed my time with the game. The cast of companion and supporting characters, both old and new, were in fantastic form, and in each interaction was rich and engaging and left me wanting more. But that was pretty common to my whole experience with Dragon Age Inquisition, is that as much as I enjoyed what was there, everything made me want more. I wanted more from the story, I wanted more from the combat, I wanted more from the game's meta systems, and I kept waiting for the whole experience to open up to be more and more and more. And it never really did. Once you get to Skyhold, it kind of just coasted along at that level. Granted, there are some pretty major problems with the game, but I still feel like this was one of the best games to come out in 2014. It engaged me more, did a better job of making me care about its characters than most games this year, even when the story was losing steam around them. Despite its flaws, I still believe that it has earned the number 5 place on my list. Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U is the most fun you will have destroying your relationships with your friends and family. Being the 4th game in the series, the Smash Bros. Formula hasn't really changed that much over time. Sure, diehard fans will complain about balancing issues and differences in control, and this one feels floatier than this one, but it's still Smash Bros., which is a pretty unique experience. And it's still fun as hell. The roster is huge, with 50 different characters, most of them Nintendo licensed. Some of them are special guest characters like Pac-Man or Mega Man or Sonic, and they all feel unique. Well, except for the 4+ Marth clones in the game, but that's beside the point. Smash Brothers is still one of the best couch co-op experiences around, and it's a lot easier than ever to take the experience online and play against other people around the world if you just need to get that fix fighting against another person and none of your friends are around. In the short time that I've had this game, I've become consumed with it. In what was probably an even bigger surprise than Shadow of Mordor, coming in at number 3 is the Talos Principle. I think it's fair to say that this game completely blindsided me. I didn't really know anything about it. I'd heard the name around, I'd seen some screenshots, but it didn't ever really seem like something that would hold my attention for long. Until I started to hear that maybe this game wasn't just good, but great. So I finally checked it out, and I gotta say, it deserves every nice thing that's ever been said about it. It starts off very simply with very basic puzzle-solving concepts that it smartly iterates over and over again, adding new layers and new depth to the gameplay. By the end of this game, you're doing some just ridiculous shit. And I especially love the atmosphere that it attempts to create around the player, exploring these really obtuse themes of free will and the nature of consciousness and what makes a person a person. The kind of shit that, as a fan of classic sci-fi, I love. As a fan of first-person puzzle games like Portal and Antechamber, I think the Talos Principle has taken that legacy and run with it in a marvelous way. I can't wait to see the sort of games that this game is going to inspire other people to make. If you're having second thoughts about this one, just do whatever you can. You have to play this game. It's incredible.
A story. Your actions give life.
Super Time Force is so very stupid, and yet at the same time, so wonderfully genius. It somehow manages to perfectly embody the purely absurd nature of time travel, but without getting into any of those sticky existential bits that often come attached. I mean, as a fan of time travel stories, I like those existential bits, the philosophical paradoxes, the wildly obtuse concepts, but sometimes it's a hell of a lot more fun just to embrace the full-on silliness and absurdity of a wildly incompetent troupe of colorful heroes bouncing through time, fucking shit up for no other reason beyond the fact that they can. I mean, why not? You only live once, right? Well, unless you're a member of the Super Time Force, in which case you live an infinite series of temporally displaced lives, each one ending in increasingly violent and ludicrous ways. It's very easy to judge this game on the surface as just being another side-scrolling shooter, but it's so much more than that. The time travel rewind mechanic adds this layer of complexity and just mind fuckery that elevate this game far beyond anything else like it I've ever played. I fucking love this game and cannot recommend it enough. Any other year, and this very easily could have been my game of the year. I mean, it was damn close, but for now, this year, Super Time Force is my number 2 game of the year. And so, here we are, at last, my number 1 game of the year, Dark Souls 2. I can't really explain it, but somehow this game manages to be so completely different from Dark Souls, and yet so alike in all the right ways. Just like in its predecessor, this time around, we as the player character assume the role of an accursed undead as we plunge into the depths of a ruined kingdom in search of salvation and glory, yet finding only pain and endless death. But seriously, this game is fun as fuck! This time around, From Software has focused the online portion of gameplay more solidly into the overall experience. They've expanded the use of the Covenants to sort of flesh out both the PvP and co-op gameplay, and I love the way they've gone about doing this. The new PvP guilds are all incredibly fun and just very interesting the way that they've integrated them not just into the gameplay but into the lore of the world as well. Dark Souls 2 is, like its predecessor, still the most addicting, rewarding, engrossing, just overall affecting gameplay experience I've had in 2014. And that's why I'm giving it my game of the year. Well, there you have it. It's another year in the bag. You know, 2014 had some disappointments with it, but you know what? There were a lot of great surprises that came out of this year too, so it's hard for me to look back on it without a little bit of fondness. Well, thanks for checking out my list, guys. I can't wait to hear all your feedback on it, and I'll see you guys later.